Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on integrating with Airthings. As you can read on this slide, this webinar will be recorded and shared afterwards, so don't worry if you have to cut out at some point, or if you want to share this with other people afterwards, or if you just want to rewatch whatever you have already seen. Before we get started, and before I am joined by our awesome API experts, a couple of housekeeping points. So first off, my name is Evelyn, and I am the PR and event manager here at Airthings. I'm merely your host. I will absolutely let all the talking happen by our API experts later, but I just wanted to take you through a couple of housekeeping things. So like I have already mentioned, we will be recording the webinar. If you have any questions, just use the chats on the side, and I see a lot of people are already doing that. We've got hi from Friske Rom, hi from Goja Group, hello guys. From Plasma Clean UK, hi everyone. Welcome, welcome. We've got Spain here. It's amazing. We're going global. I've got Switzerland, everyone. Welcome. This webinar will last about an hour, and please feel free to connect with all of the speakers on LinkedIn. They're super nice people. They will answer any questions you have. And if you have any other questions that they might not be able to answer, but honestly, I doubt it because they're very knowledgeable, you can always reach out to our support at business-support@airthings.com. So our agenda for today, first of all, we've got Martin McGloin, who is our head of product of Airthings for Business, who will be presenting the intro to Airthings APIs. Afterwards, we've got hands-on with Airthings API with Blue, who will be walking you through how to actually use the API. Afterwards, we've got Greg Arden, who will be talking about his project at an architect office in London. And lastly, we'll have three practical uses for the Airthings API by Roland Kjelen, who works at Labots Totalinstallaties. And then lastly, we've got Martin, who will talk you through the whole future on where we're actually headed with the roadmap. And the keywords of this is MQTT and BACnet. So stay tuned, and I'm super, super happy to introduce Martin. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Evelyn. Do I get a webinar high five?
Yay!
Very good. Great intro. Thank you for some exceptional housekeeping. And I must say, I'm really glad that webinar platforms these days don't have any constraints, because judging by the number of people that are willing to spend an hour geeking out on APIs and air quality, we would have been overscripted. I'm surprised there are so many people in the world excited about this webinar.
I know, I love that so much. It's so cool to see everybody here, and there is, like, honestly, so many people online, so that's really great.
Exciting. Cool. So welcome, everyone. And let me start by anchoring the discussion and presentations here today into both the product vision and the company vision of Airthings. Because really, when we talk about integrations and enabling integrations, it's a key part in what we're trying to do in Airthings, empowering the world to breathe better. And it's a purpose and a goal that we all feel throughout the company, and we really want to activate throughout the world, whether we're at home as a consumer solution, or as we're focused on today within commercial buildings, Airthings for Business. And to enable this goal, we built up a suite of indoor air quality monitoring solutions that are all wireless, incredibly easy to integrate. And it's not us saying this, but some of these other independent institutions that are positioning us as one of the leading indoor air quality monitoring solutions in the world. And it's great to be able to gather all this data of this invisible, hard to name elements and particles in the air around us that we all breathe in daily, that are not only impacting our health and our comfort, but even our cognition. But what do you do with this insight? Having it presented, having it translated into something understandable is a great starting point. But when we talk about integrations, it's taking that next step. What to do with this data, how to solve the problems you might encounter within your building. So when we talk about integrations in this context, it's primarily through two avenues or through destinations. So it's taking all of this data that we're gathering now about a school, an office, a public space, into the Airthings cloud and making that available to another cloud solution, so another cloud-to-cloud integration, whether that's you're a system integrator, or maybe you have some digital signage, you want to display and engage air quality throughout the space, or maybe bring air quality data into something actionable, into how you run and operate your building, for example, through an integrated workplace management solution. And that's way, and that in these contexts, our APIs can be very, very useful and powerful to automate a lot of workflows. The other path is into our buildings. Really, this is where our heating, our cooling, our purification, our air handling units are operating. And the richer the data sets we have, more actionable data, we can ensure we get optimal balance between productive, healthy indoor environment while using just the right amount of energy to all of these technical systems in our buildings. And we'll be covering both of these two avenues in our presentations here today. Integrations for us at Airthings are so important. We have a whole team dedicating to breathing, living, thinking about APIs from breakfast, lunch to dinner. And this is our team. They're called literally building integrations, both because they build the integrations, but also because we really want to enable everyone to bring the data into their buildings, into the built environment. And the raison d'etre, the purpose of this team is nothing less to make it an effortless joy to work with our APIs, to get this data and allow you to be creative with that data. And a great starting point after this webinar is to check out the developer documentations, so developer.airthings.com, where this team is publishing documentation on all the various protocols we support and giving some great examples of how to use it. So the links will also be placed in the chat below. And we'll be referring to this throughout the webinar here today. And it's probably been 2-3 years now we've had our developer documentation available, and we've had the APIs. And in that short period of time, our partners and customers have made some amazing things already. And I think what's really heartening is it is even beyond the imagination of what I thought was possible. And I'm a bit more than average obsessed about APIs and air quality. So we've seen some really cool solutions that come to market. And I think a lot of that is driven by having a flexible integration strategy and then allowing the end users to design solutions that fit their use cases. So Infogrid has a great solution for a huge portfolio management of buildings, where they bring in, for example, Airthings data compared with other native IoT players to give you a comprehensive overview of both how you could operate and manage your buildings better and get on a fine grain with specific use cases. Loop24 is a Norwegian company that have actually brought in air quality data on the meeting room screens. So if you're about to book a meeting room or check whether a meeting room is in use, you also get information on whether the space has the air quality for a productive and optimal meeting or not. Or you can even bring your air quality data into a 3D model, essentially creating a digital twin. So if you have a 3D model, for example, in Matterport, you can add the tags and see live air quality data as you walk through your 3D model, maybe with some VR goggles. And the opportunities there are abound opportunities. For example, a carrier abound platform brings in Airthings air quality data. Spacewell Kubundu. We also have Schneider's Workplace Assistant, and even the Reset, which is a building certification scheme that allows you to certify the quality of your indoor spaces, now has a seamless integration. So you're continuously reporting using the Airthings APIs to Reset to ensure that you can remain compliant to the thresholds they have set for what is a healthy indoor space. And just today, preparing for this webinar, what would I not see? Another great example from a supermarket here in Norway. Another one of our partners, BioZone, has created these digital signages that give peace of mind and great information to anyone that's entering one of the Meny supermarkets of what the air quality is just at that moment. That's a great resource. So another great example that just hot off the press. So having seen all of the various opportunities and examples that already exist, you might be itching with your own ideas. And really, it is your own creativity that sets the limits. Let us start off with just showing how easy it is to get started. So Blue is one of our software engineers here in Airthings and in the building integrations teams. Hi, Blue.
Hello, Martin.
The challenge we have for you is to show how easy, and maybe in less than 10 minutes, one can get started using the Airthings RESTful API and start exploring it. Are you up for the challenge?
Yes, challenge accepted.
Nice. And I know you're going to use a tool called Postman today.
Yes, Postman is a very convenient tool to explore all of the API and get started to see how the API is structured, what data it offers, even not without even having to build a client for you on your own. I think most of the software engineer is pretty familiar with this tool.
And if you're not a software engineer, essentially Postman is a tool for the kind of initial exploration before we start doing any coding. So it's a great way to get an overview of what can you do, what kind of data can you get from the API. So it's a great starting point for exploring. So I leave the challenge for you, Blue. Get started.
Okay, there we go. So I will start sharing my screen. And here we are. And as you can see, I am in our developer page, and our set of APIs is available in an open API specs, which you can download here. Even if you're not familiar with Postman or anything, we also have a section in our developer page dedicated to walk you through the setup of Postman or Insomnia to get you started on the endpoint. So to start off, I will start to copy the open API specs for our endpoint and go over here to Postman, import them as raw text. There we go. And once you start importing, it will start to import all of the endpoints available in our API to Postman. There we go. And then after that, you should see an API, Airthings API collection here. And then what we need to do next is to set up some authentication for Postman to connect to our API. And we will use the OAuth 2.0 tag for that. After you open that, you go down to callback URL, authorize the Postman client using the browser, and then we just copy that. And then I will go over to our dashboard, Airthings dashboard here. I'm going to go to integration section and then API. And I will create a new API client. Then I'll just name it webinar demo client. Yes. And since I will show you how to get a list of devices from our Airthings dashboard here, I'll just need the scope of grid device. And then we just paste in the redirect URL that we got from Postman. And then we also want to enable our client. Then after we press save, we should be able to get a client ID and client secret, which we will be passing that over to our Postman setup under here. I'll just copy those and paste it over. And as for the authorization URL and access token URL, we have it available in our developer page here. So you can just get that over, copy those over and paste it in as well. There we go. Authorization URL and access token URL. And as you can see here, we also need to get the client authentication to send the client credential into the body. So I'll set just that. And then looks like everything else is set here. I'll just click on get a new access token, which will redirect me to our accounts API, where I have to log in, and then I have to give consent for the demo client to have access to the scope in order to read the devices. After I press agree, it will redirect back to Postman, and there we go, we're authorized. And then it will automatically add the token to Postman. So you can just click on start using the token. And now we go over to our endpoint, go to device list, and then set the authorization type to inherit out from parents. Oh, but before that, we need to save our setup here so that the other endpoints can use. There we go. Now you can see this request is using OAuth 2.0 from the setup that we have. And then we also need to put in our organization ID so that the client know where to get it from. And the organization ID can be found in our account, in the dashboard account under organization. I'll just grab that and then throw it over here. And the endpoint will work with either organization ID or user group ID. So you can just omit that. And then everything should be correct. If I press send in now, then voila, you see a list of devices in our Airthings dashboard. Is that under 10 minutes?
That's definitely under 10 minutes, Blue. Very good. Thank you. And I think for those of you which maybe this got a little bit too technical, fear not, there is a recording and all of this is also documented in the developer docs. And the next cases we will have will be a lot more practical and hands-on as well. But so Blue, you've shown how to set up Postman with the Airthings documentation loaded. You've done the authentication. You've created a client in the Airthings dashboard, a RESTful client, and you've gotten the first piece of data through the API, a list of devices on this account. Yes. But I want to see sensor data. What about if I want to see how much CO2 is on that Wave Plus is now reporting? Okay, if you want to see that, we also have a list of endpoints which you can get samples from. You can get sample history, but since you want the latest sample on that device, we will go to this endpoint and we'll put in the serial number of that device here and use the same organization ID as we did in the previous call. Let's just go over there and grab that ID, copy it, and like this. There we go, put it in there. And then also set the authorization type to inherit from our setup from before. And there we go. Excellent. So 511 ppm is the current CO2 measurement. So that's pretty good. And temperature is 22.6 Celsius. So there you have it. It's very easy to get started and explore the various endpoints we have here in the Postman. You can get a sense of what kind of application solutions you could build with the Airthings API. Yeah. Blue, thank you very much. I must say the challenge was definitely approved. Great job. And let's see, having seen now how to get started with the RESTful API, let's explore some practical use cases, and this time in an actual building. And I'd like to invite up Greg Arden, joining us from the UK. Greg is an optimization manager in the Optimize group within Optimize Buildings. And he's been working within building automation and energy management for the last 20 years, which coincidentally is the same number of years he's been married. So clearly Greg met his passion in his career and passion in life at the same time. Life has a curious way of coinciding these things, right? And the project you're about to show off, Greg, I know it's been on your mind for at least the last year, if not more, and you've definitely been pushing the boundary, and you've had a very demanding client, a very innovative client in building the solution.
Yeah, so that's right. Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction there, Martin.
And thank you for joining us. I'll leave the stage to you.
No problem. No problem. Welcome everybody. Greg Arden from Optimize Group. Just give you a little bit of context about what Optimize is about. Optimize is actually 3 separate business units culminating in a group structure. So we have an energy division, a buildings division, and a spaces division. I predominantly work in the buildings side of the business, and at the very center of our buildings business is our optimized bureau. This is a 24/7 operation. So what do? We optimize existing assets and systems. So we do what it says on the tin, we optimize buildings. So we combine this with technology and expertise, and we look to deliver an ongoing service around energy savings, carbon reduction, and maintenance savings. Our focus is typically around an ROI of less than 12 months, and we are totally focused on business outcomes. So our target of our 100% energy spend, we typically see that HVAC accounts for around 40%. And of this 40%, 25% is typically wasted energy. So what's the problem? What's the opportunity? So typically when a building is handed over, you see this natural degradation in the building. And this happens time and time again. What we do at Optimize is through that optimized bureau and optimized efforts at the building level, this optimization effort is like a continual recommissioning of the building constantly. Okay, so At the very core, this combines multiple different services, so BMS, analytics, AMT, IoT, renewables, energy, and spaces. And within the Bureau, we have a 24/7 operation, as I mentioned, and we're using all of these tools to culminate in driving those energy savings, those operational gains, etc. So how do we do this as a service? So we combine these three really key elements: our processes, our expertise, and our technology. And an important point to mention there is that we are completely technology agnostic. All right, so a lot of our customers will have trend systems, will have Siemens systems, will have automated logic, Distech, whatever. And we will work with whichever system they have chosen to use at that junction. So I'll switch into providing you the overview of this particular project. So this is an architectural engineering firm, a very well-known global organization. And this particular project was focused around two phases. So initially, December 2019, we deployed around 150 Airthings sensors and associated hubs. The hubs are actually connected to the corporate network, so they're not over Wi-Fi, and the sensors are deployed across the campus. So immediately you can see here, this is what the customer sees, okay? And we've got some fan coil units that across this space, and it's all open plan. And what we did was the customer installed some Dakin fan coil units and associated fresh air plant to supply this space. We provided a small panel with one of the services rooms in one of these little cellular spaces, and we integrated with the Dakin system, and we integrated with the Airthings sensors. And I'll show you in a second the data flow and how we did that. So this is a view that the end customer facilities team have on the ground. And you can see here the Airthings sensors, most of them are colored yellow here at the moment, and there's one that's green. This is a snapshot that was taken a few days ago. And just to mention that this installation was literally only went live about a week ago. Okay, so we're still understanding how it's performing at this point. So the green would represent CO2 performing well, and the yellow would be okay, but could be better. And so what the customer can do is they can actually click on one of the VRV zones, and they can get real-time data from the Dakin system via our controller. So one of the key things that we did was we provided a comfort index. We feel this is really important. When you're trying to save energy, you need to understand what the detriment to comfort is. It's no good saving loads of money if it's going to be at the detriment to comfort and optimal performance in that space. So you can see here we've got a temperature value. So this temperature value is coming directly from the Airthings sensor associated with this zone. And if for any reason we lost communications to the API, it would default to the Dakin return air sensor. In this particular space, we just have return air sensors on the VRVs, but you'll be aware that a lot of VRV, VRF systems have typically a local user interface with a small display that displays that temperature set point. So we provide in the application some future proofing that enables for the user to offset this temperature. So that's why we've got an effective set point there. You can see the fan speed, the mode the unit's in, and the communications of the Dakin system to our controller. And we have a couple of different setback modes here that provide occupied, unoccupied, heating and cooling. So the user can set different set points for those different setbacks for different zones. You'll also notice at the bottom here that there's a maintenance routine. So this was a really key feature that we deployed successfully within a very large hotel in central London also. And this provides the feature for the facilities team to run either a scheduled or a manual maintenance routine. And what this does is it runs the routine typically out of hours, makes sure that the heating and cooling loops are performing and you're getting the appropriate dead bands met. So that's the HVAC VRV side. And then obviously we also provided a small pop-up for the facility team to drill into the temperature and other endpoints within the Airthings sensor. So radiant temperature, humidity, CO2, TVOC, pressure, light, and the virus risk indicator. So we're obviously trending all of these bits of information, and the user can click on any of these and get a graph for that specific endpoint in the same way that they would if they were in the dashboard. So then the other thing that we provided with them, if you remember, I mentioned a comfort index. So the comfort index key is down the bottom here, and if we were on the live system, we would be able to hover over each one of these bars and get a text version of what state this space or the zones within this space are. So for instance, we can see some zones that are in green. So this means that they are comfortable. And obviously on the far end of the spectrum, we've got some zones here that are in maximum heating. And so, like I said, this project only went live a week ago, and we're already realizing that through the data that we're collecting from the sensors and the data that we're getting through the control from the Dakin, that we've identified that there are some zones that are struggling to heat. This space is actually river facing in Battersea, and it's literally right on the river towpath there. So we get some strong winds and some cool breezes coming in there. So, and just to finish up, I said that I would explain how we did this, what the data flow looks like. So starting up, we have the Dakin VRV system. We have a Dakin DBACs gateway, which is speaking the BACnet over IP protocol. And we pull this data into a JACE controller locally within the space. The Airthings data actually comes in via a RESTful API connector. We use the active framework connector from Vayan Data. There are plenty of Niagara REST API connectors that are out there. We did actually in the early days develop our own. And so this is ingesting the data into our normalization platform, which is the Niagara Windows Station, which is running on the Trend IQ Vision. And the reason for that specific instance is because elsewhere on the campus, we have trend controls deployed. So the data is ingested into the IQ Vision Niagara Windows Station. We get the data from the Dakin, we get the data all normalized there. The second part of the requirements for this particular project, campus-wide, was that we push via telemetry events to an MQTT broker. And in this case, they chose to use the Azure platform by Microsoft. So the data is ingested, and then what they do is they present on iPad dashboards, literally plastered across the whole of the campus, the temperature and CO2 information, along with other systems within the campus. And this ultimately culminates in providing a really well-controlled, comfortable environment for the end user occupants. And what we've seen is this combined with the other policies around the COVID measures that they've implemented on site, that they've seen a natural progression of occupants, employees returning to the workplace. So this is a really positive thing. Well-controlled spaces, reduction in energy, and a comfortable, safer environment for the owners. So that's pretty much all from myself. So I'll hand back over to Martin.
And I'm back. Excellent presentation, Greg. And really excited to see the topology here as well. We actually got a question, or George was thinking in the chat earlier that, oh, this looks like a trend integration. And it seems like George was right. Did you hear me, Greg? We good? I think I will jump back to my slides then, and we'll get ready. Thank you very much again for the presentation, Greg. And our next presenter up is coming to us live from the Netherlands is none other than Roland Gelen, who's the Chief Information Officer at Labots Total in Stallion. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, Roland.
Hey, Martin.
Hi, Roland. I'm super excited. Now we've seen a very practical use case in the architecture office from someone that's been 20 years in the building integration and energy optimization industry. I can share with you, dear audience, that Roland has not spent 20 years within building integration and optimization, but rather really been exploring throughout his career how to bridge the gap between the digital and the physical world into awesome experiences. So before he was getting his hands dirty within buildings, he was creating great experiences, combining the two with electronic dance floors around the world as a video DJ and event organizer. And I think some of the coolest clubs have his video installations installed that he's programmed up amongst them. And unfortunately, I can't say the name of the club, but if you've been to this club in Las Vegas, you would have known, okay, this must be Roland that created. There's some amazing experiences. In the summer of 2020, Roland had 50 events planned that he was going to help organize, but it turns out that having 80 to 100,000 people gathering in electronic festivals around the world was probably not going to happen. As a other prize, he got to jump into this world and jump into the Airthings API, and he's hacked together, he's been creative, he's created some really cool solutions, and we had to strain him down to only 3 of them, but I can tell you he's done a lot more cool stuff with Airthings API. We're ready for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Wow, Martin, that's quite some introduction. Thank you very much for that. So I'm seeing people from all over the world here. I'm seeing people from England. Good afternoon. I'm even seeing people from Singapore. Apa kabar. Also some Dutch people. Goedemiddag. But let's keep it in English for today. I'm going to show you some practical cases of platform integration. And for this, I will be using mostly webhooks in combination with some of the software I feel very comfortably to use. Well, I don't think I need some more introduction. As Martin already said, I have a background in IT and digital media design, and there are a lot of overlapping areas there. So yeah, let's dive right into it. I'm working at Labots at the moment, and we are an electrical engineering company, but we do a lot more. We do data and telecom, access control, IT service. But for today, we are focusing on the indoor air quality. We have about 15 field engineers. Those guys drive around in their vans and they fix basically everything with a plug on it. And on the other side, we have 3 guys at the IT department, of which I am one of them. So, starting the whole indoor air quality stuff, since we're working mostly in the educational area, we started around the end of 2019, starting of 2020, and that's when there was a very big shift in the Netherlands. Schools were mandated by the government to measure the CO2 levels, and they had to do that in a, to me, kind of ridiculous way. They got those forms sent over to them, and they had to fill it in by hand. So walk around the school with a CO2 meter and yeah, fill in the forms. They came to us and they were like, guys, this is ridiculous. We need something better. Could you please help us out here? And yeah, that's when we took a dive into the world of CO2 sensors and indoor air quality sensors. But there were so many, we really didn't know which one to choose. So we started to make a checklist, and at the top of the list was the compliance. There was some rules by the government, and yeah, that's where we started. So that's the green ring you can see was one of the mandatory things by the government. But we also want to keep it easy for our guys to install it, so we could work really fast and do a lot. So it has to be wireless. We don't want to drill into the schools, and it has to work standalone, since we don't want to work together with IT departments, or we would like to work together with IT departments, but you know, it's always kind of a hassle in there. So a year after that, in 1 year, we did 49 schools. So that's one school almost every week. And we got a lot of questions from the whole country, and they were like, "Could you help us?" And that's when we started doing business with IoT City, and that's the distributor in the Netherlands. And together with them, we have created a lot of new installations, and we are even working together with some big insurance companies in the Netherlands, T-Mobile as a telephone company. So yeah, there are a lot of things here. We did a big stadium. We did all the sky boxes, filled them up with the Airthings sensors. So yeah, that's why we could show that you could safely watch a soccer match in the Holland, since it's one of our biggest national sports. Well, alongside Formula One. Max Verstappen, do your best, man. Yeah, and then there's also this guy, Estron. They have a very big warehouse. And in this warehouse, they have rice stored. And it's very important to keep the quality of the rice up in top shape. So yeah, they created a video of it, and they even posted it on their social media. And I'll show you that video. So let me get back to my slides here. Whoop. Yeah, so Estron, we are very proud of that. Now, moving on to let's get our hands dirty. We're going to do 3 things today. I'll try to go through it as fast as I can. First of all, I'm going to show you how to display the indoor air quality anywhere you like by using WordPress and webhooks. After that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about automating older systems with 0 to 10 volt. And last but not least, I'm going to show you how to use indoor air quality as a marketing tool. So let's dive right into it. The way we interpret data is it should be very automatic. You shouldn't even feel it. Like, for instance, the time. If you want to know how late it is, just watch your clock and you know what the time is. Moving on through the years, we could see that there was also this weather thing. So you could just watch the wall and see what kind of weather it would be tomorrow. Moving on, we even have internal sensors to check our vital functions. This is awesome. You could just check your heart rate. I think mine is a little bit faster now. And last but not least, I think this is where we are going to. We're going to use API integrations, IoT sensors throughout the whole world to just watch everything you want on your wrist. And then there is a lot of opportunity in the country everywhere. You see digital signage almost everywhere. When you walk into a gym, when you walk into an office, for me, that's a lot of opportunity to show the indoor air quality on those screens. And I am going to show you how to do this. Okay, for this, I'm using WordPress. It's a publishing platform, and it's really easy to do anything in there. And I'm using a couple of plugins, but let's just dive into it. Let me get that video here. Share, yes. Okay, this is WordPress. I've created a little page here. This page is a school demo. And as you can see, I've created a template. It's in the canvas, so it has a full screen display. Let's edit it with Elementor. This is what I've created. It has a nice logo, a green cloud, some text, and also a temperature icon and some text in there now saying data. We have to make this dynamic. We have to connect it to the Airthings API. For that, we're going back to the dashboard. And we're going to create some custom fields. Those are the fields we have to put in the data we pick up from the webhooks. And let's name this webhook for school demo. Okay, then we are going to create some fields. Let's name this CO2 for school. and create another field for the temperature. Let's say temp for school. We have to show this when the page is equal to school demo. And that's about it. Yep. So save that, publish it. And when it saves, we go on to the Automator WP. Automator is another plugin we use to push the data into the fields we have just created. We'll create it as an anonymous automation. For the integration, let's give it a name first. Name would be automation for school demo. Okay, we are going to integrate a webhook into this. So we click receive data from webhook, and this is where we get a URL. So we copy this URL and we go to our Airthings dashboard. We click integrations, webhooks, and create a new webhook. Let's name this school demo webhook. Then we paste the URL we just got from the automation, and we select which devices we are going to use. For this, we only need the sample feed, and that's the feed that contains the CO2 value and the humidity and all that stuff. So we click it, and then we have to push save and turn it on. So save, it's already enabled, and let's test it. If we click test, we get a sample feed. And nice thing to know is that this manually triggered test has no value in it. So everything is put on 0, but that doesn't matter because we can use it to check if our connection is working. Here's the data we've collected. So as you can see, everything is at 0, but we are getting data from the Airthings API. So let's use these fields. We get a lot of data and save. So moving on, actions will be run on. This is something we always have to enter. So I'll just put in my username here. That's also my name. Don't hack my password, please. And if this user doesn't exist, we create a new user. So just new user at Gmail or whatever. It will always work. And click save. Then let's add an action. What we want to do is push this data into a field, one of the fields we've just created. So set increment or push data into a meta key. Post ID, we need the post ID, and the post ID is the number of the page we've just created. So we have to find that. Let's create a new page and log in again. Go to this admin, all pages, school demo, and the link will be, there you go, you can see it in the top already. Post is 125. So let's remember that or copy it and dive into post ID, paste it there. Okay, what do we want to do? We want to put a value into a key. Now the value would be our webhook data. So we click it, scroll down to, let's say, CO2. Where is it? Data CO2, save. And for the key, we enter the field we have just created. So the name of the field. Let's check what we just did. There we go, CO2 for school. Let's copy that. We can also use the field name. It's easy. So let's copy that and go back to there and say CO2 for school. Hit save. Then we want to create another integration for the temperature. So again, create this here. We still remember the post ID, still on the same page, so 125. Hit save. Value will be temperature. So let's dive into the webhook. Here we go, scroll down. Remember, there are two things. There's data/0, that's the real data, and there's data/ratings, and that gives you something like good, medium, average, or whatever. So let's copy the temp for school. Copy that and paste it in there. Hit save, and then hit save and activate, so it will all be activated. Now we can go back to our page. So after it's successful, go back to our pages, and on our school demo, we have to do one more thing. That is to connect the fields to the right text field we created. So go to the dynamic field at the ACF field and select the right one. So that's CO2 for school for this one. And oh yeah, we could do ppm after it. So it pushes the data and we'll set ppm. And we do that for data for temperature as well. So we click dynamic type and go to this one, set temp for school. And maybe we want to do something like degrees Celsius. So degrees Celsius, yes. And there we go, it's already firing. So if we update this, if everything's all right, then we go to our page and refresh it. Ta-da! We've created a live demo. So yeah, for that, let's go back to my slides here. Roland's slides. Boom. So this is what we've created. Now, if you use conditional logic, you can do even more. For instance, give an alert to open a window when the CO2 reaches above a certain threshold. Well, it's that easy, guys. If anyone has questions, thank you. I get a lot of applause here. If anyone wants to know how this works, just hit me up on LinkedIn or anything. I'll be really happy to help you. Next, automating older systems. As you know, or some of you might know, that the CO2 in schools, especially somewhat older buildings, is where the CO2 levels are quite high. As you can see here, the CO2 levels in this particular school are above 2000 on a Friday afternoon. That's something we really don't want. So this is when Airthings got up with Airtype. This is what they've created. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a slide for it. And what this device does is it connects to the Airthings API, and it creates a 0 to 10 volt signal. And a lot of older building systems are using 0 to 10 volt to steer their ventilation systems. So diving into that, we've created a small formula. And that formula is CO2 voltage is max measured ppm minus 400 divided by 160, and then you get a certain voltage. And that's the voltage we're going to send to the mechanical ventilation. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then I have to sign up one more video. Okay, yes, sure. This is a really fast one, so get ready. Oh, this is not the right one, is it? No, this is not the right one. Video 3, sorry. Yes, sure. Okay, in the Airthings dashboard, you go to Add Group. You create a group of, if you have multiple wave pluses or whatever in your building, then you create a group. And it should be all similar devices, so all wave pluses or all view pluses or something like that. Let's add a couple of rooms in there and create a group. Now, as you can see, there's this vent controller demo group. Let's go to integrations and go to webhooks. Now, it's very easy to set up a webhook, as you've seen before. So let's give it a name, VC demo webhook, and paste the URL. This is the URL Airthings is using for all the calculations. At the vent controller demo group, blah, blah, blah. We don't need all these. The only thing we need is the aggregated value sample feed. Since our CO2 is on port 6, let's put it in there. Port 6 is sending the 0 to 10 volt for CO2. And we have to add our controller ID. Then click save. Let's check if it's working. Save, test. Enable it. boom, test. And you can see there's a lot of data being shot from this particular webhook. We're now getting the data into our device. Let's go back to my slides here. So this is what we're getting. I think it's a bit dark, but as you can see, there are a number of sensors connected to it, and we're getting the minimum and the maximum, and that's what we put in our little formula to start working with it and steering the older ventilation units. So wrapping up, guys, what we can do now is we can inform and alert our users or people in the building. We can also fully automate it. So I think we are now happy that we can inform or take the commercial approach and say, hey, we have a good building. The air is very, very good in here. So let's do something with it. And if you're working in digital media, what you're always looking for is opportunities. And this is where I see opportunities. Guys, when we enter a shop, this is what we see. We have to sanitize our hands, and come on, we're not in 1944 or 1990, whatever. This looks old school. So I think, let's do something with it. And I see you guys thinking, come on, Roland, you cannot automate or connect an API to a hand sanitizer, dude. But, well, here we are. This is what we've created together with another company. It's a hand sanitizer that also shows the indoor air quality on a specific building. So this is for me the next step to getting it all together and making some really cool stuff. We can also do this, for instance, at airports or use it on the window of a shop, saying, "Come inside. We have some very good air, very clean air here." So this is for me the future right now. Thank you very much for all your attention, guys. And Martin, you can come in if you like.
Hi, I'm already here. And I see you actually have this contraption. It's probably a little bit out of focus, but I see one of these stations combining disinfectant with air quality behind you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's right here.
You want to give us a live demo?
Did you get that?
And what's the CO2 levels?
Right now it's 659.
Okay, so disinfected hands and clean air.
Yes.
659, that's a good CO2 level. It means that you get a good air exchange going on. Very good.
Exactly.
Great presentation. And I love
the
innovations that you come with. And you're really being one of the ones that have been pushing our API the most. I think it's like every month I get a new request or a new feature from Roland. So I'm really, really grateful and thank you. And great that you could showcase some of the stuff that you built as well. Amazing. And maybe now can we invite all the speakers up onto the stage and we can do some Q&A. I was told off because I've been so eager. I've actually answered some of the questions also in the chat as we've been going, but there are some additional questions that came through. And I think one of the, let me check now what the questions we have here from Evelyn. So one of the questions, I think maybe it was Greg that talked about the virus risk. There's a question here. What is the virus risk?
Okay, so the virus risk, it's a good question. So the virus risk is actually a virtual sensor, and there's some back-end calculations that are being done in Airthings. Obviously, the key thing here is temperature, CO2, and relative humidity, and you can't kind of take one or the other, and none of them are linear. So you know, we in terms of what we've done, we've gone after the CO2 and the temperature side of things, but we use the virus risk indicator as an indication of risk in the space. But it is a virtual sensor; it's not a real endpoint.
Yes, enriching the data you get through the raw data to kind of give a more, I suppose, it's more relatable to think about the virus risk rather than ppm, so CO2 at the same time as humidity, at the same time as temperature, because as you say, it's a multi-dimensional equation to determine actually what is the survivability and transmission rates of viruses in the
it's correlative, but it's not linear. Yeah. So yeah.
That was a question from Dennis. We have another question here from Vincent about calibration of devices.
Yep.
Have you got any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so you'll remember the little pop-up that we had in my slides, which was a snapshot of the floor plan. So what we've done across the campus is, I think I mentioned earlier, we've got the majority of the sensors are actually on the slab. This particular architectural engineering firm don't like plenums, or what we know as false ceilings. So the majority of the sensors are actually mounted on the slab. We do have some sensors that are mounted, maybe a couple of feet off desk level in a very large open plan area, and that was the position that was chosen there. And obviously, the distance between the desk level and the slab is the temperature difference is quite big. In some cases, we're seeing 2 degrees difference. So what we've done is we've actually provided a space in the pop-up for the facilities team to go around and periodically calibrate the sensors to the desk level. So the difference, the offset between one and the other. So they can go around and do that. They don't need us to do that. So that's how we manage that.
Excellent, cool. And a question for Roland here. Someone really curious about both of your integrations and the monitoring. And the question is, what percentage of your clients set up pure monitoring displays, disinfection stands with air quality data, and how many of them actually tie it into their BAS? And what's the dynamic there?
It's like most of the things, we've just created it, and I only have 3 or 4 out in the field, but I wish we could put out some more. It's just mostly for informing the people in the building.
Yeah. And I think that's the normal dynamics and really the journey we're all on, right? Make your investment decisions before you get someone like Greg or Roland on board to do the integrations. You need to know kind of to what extent do you have a problem, and where are your problem areas. And often, I think the beauty of the solution and integrations we're seeing is primarily in retrofitting buildings, where you might, and you do your initial deployment of sensors, monitor, get an overview of what kind of capacity are we missing in terms of air exchange or additional ventilation within certain zones, and then you do your work. And I think that's the dynamic you're seeing as well, Roland, is that now you have 50 schools, you have all of these commercial spaces, and they're getting a sense of where are the problem areas, right? And then you can inform those investments.
We're pioneering, man.
Do you get a sense that kind of monitoring and data impact can inform investment decisions and actually be used? Like you bring an indoor air quality report to the building owner or the building operator on behalf of the tenants, and actually that's a great argument in planning where you do refurbishment or additional work.
I think there's definitely a way of achieving that. The thing we are seeing the most is that indoor air quality is not top of mind yet until we start informing the owners of a building or the facility department, and really take them on board by us and show them what it could mean for them, and from them that's where they start going for it, and they want more and more. So that's great to see that.
And I suppose, Greg, in the case of this architecture office, you had 150 of these devices installed more than a year before any other work was finalized, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that little concept area was the first of many, and in fact, in the next couple of projects, one is underway, one is starting in the new year. We're actually doing a natural ventilation scheme. So this is using windows, motorized windows, and thermal units on the roof, tying in with the fresh air that's supplied into the space. So it's a moving goalpost. The sensor was the first phase, and then we started doing small areas, and now we're moving into some quite interesting areas around natural ventilation.
Okay, but so that's within the same campus of this office. Yeah. Initially, you had these Daikin units. Now you're actually also going to automate the windows based on the air quality that you're getting. Very exciting. So I think there are add to the list of ways of things you can actuate, think you can display, think you can automate using the Airthings API, even opening and closing of windows. And I think with that, we're actually on the hour. because there was a lot of terrain to cover, and we do have a little sneak peek. But I want to say thank you very much for our guests, our presenters today, Blue, Greg, Roland. It's been great having you, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. And for those of you that have other things scheduled, that's understandable. I don't want to take up more of your time, but remember, you will get a recording. And if you do have a little bit of curiosity, I want to delve into MQTT and BACnet with me now. Stay on. If not, we can catch up a bit later. So I'm going to get up my slides here now and give you a little bit of a flavor of where we are heading in the Airthings product moment. I just want to give you a small little tip as well before I keep going, is that Blue, Roland, and Greg, do not mind at all if you want to reach out to them on LinkedIn. Take a screenshot now if you find the names. They're easy to find. Share your thoughts, share your projects, share ideas or questions with them directly, or contact ourselves. So in the final part of the webinar now, I'm going to give you a little bit of flavor of where we're heading in terms of integrations with Airthings. And I think from the very beginning, when we started Airthings for Business, our product development has been driven by the needs and requests from our customers and our partners in the market. And all of the endpoints that we've added, we've kind of iteratively been adding endpoints. We added webhooks that we've all been driving by use cases that specific customers are coming with. So I think Roland has probably can put his signature on 3 of our endpoints. And a lot of the other people in the audience here today have also driven us to expand the API. So please come with your requests if there's something you're missing in the API. We are very responsive, and it helps us prioritize the work. But beyond the existing ways to integrate, webhooks and REST APIs, we're also looking at some new ways to make this data available. And 2 of the most oftenly talked about areas are MQTT and BACnet. And let me touch upon both of those 2 briefly. So MQTT is really is a more modern protocol, and really where I think it's a way to transmit data between systems. I think we're going to see a lot more in buildings ahead of time. And the reason for this is an extremely lightweight protocol. It has a very scalable infrastructure and is ideal for time series based data, for example, from a sensor in the building. And the core architecture, and I won't dwell too much into how our MQTT is built up, but it's a very appealing structure in the sense that you have clients, MQTT clients, that would either publish or subscribe from a core broker. And then it could be multiple devices that publish, and this can be then republished to other devices that are subscribing to a specific topic. So it's a publish-subscribe architecture. And MQTT stands for, let me see if I get this right, Messaging, Queue, Telemetry, Transport. Maybe I mix up transport and telemetry, but you can verify me on Wikipedia. And another key indicator where we think this is going to be predominant when it comes to building automation is the fact that Honeywell's Tritium Niagara added native support for this as an integration protocol in version 4 onwards. On the right on my slide here, I've sketched out a typical architecture for how MQTT might look at an Airthings installation. So on the left, you have 3 Airthings devices, a View Plus, a Wave Plus, and a Wave Mini, communicating to a hub, which is then wirelessly transferring over cellular network directly to the Airthings cloud. So it's not touching the building network or architecture at all. There's no kind of security implication within your building. To get that data into your building automation system, there's then, we host an MQTT broker, and the BMS server within the building could then subscribe to specific topics for all of these devices. You could then run MQTT locally within the building, or if you have a traditional protocol like, for example, BACnet or modules communicating to all the actuators within your building, your heating, cooling coils, your fans, or other things you want to initiate based on air quality data, they can then communicate within the building. The approach, so we're already come pretty far in this development. That's something we're launching early next year, but as some of the features we've already touched upon, this is already in early access. So please reach out to me if you want to test it out. The setting up of an MQTT client will be akin to what we see multiple times today as a webhook or RESTful API. You set up your MQTT clients. But there's no flexibility in terms of the the topic structures. So those of you familiar with MQTT, the broker will be on the Airthings side. We'll host the broker, and we'll make quite a few different entities available that you can subscribe to, whether it's the organization, which is the top level, the location or the building, the device, and the device samples. So that means that you can actually get even more data than what's currently available in the webhooks. So for example, you can, whenever anything changes on your organization level, this will be published, or on connection, and also within your building, whether you're building opening hours. As you can see here on the next slide here, I've shown 2 sample data packages. So on the left is for the location entity or the building entity. So whenever you connect to the broker or something changes, this will be published on this topic, and you will information about the building name, the location, and all the metadata that you might have stored about the building, including the building opening hours. But if you want specific sample data for a device, that's published on the samples topic. So then you're building yourself further down the topic hierarchy, and here you can get specific sensor data published. So you subscribe to this topic. And all the clients, the way we would support them is through certificates. You would set up a MQTT client unique for who you want to subscribe to data, and download the certificate and install that to ensure an encrypted communication between us as a broker and your building automation system or other entity as the subscriber, as the client. So as I said, it's already open for early access, so please reach out if you want to test it out and help us in the development as we refine this now. The second aspect that a lot of you have been asking about is around BACnet, or building automation and control networks. This is an older protocol, and probably I would say it's the market leading way of communicating within a building in both North America and Northern Europe, and I assume it's very dominant in Southern Europe as well. And we see these as often as Modbus or KNX in Europe. And the background for why a lot of you are asking for can Airthings for Business integrate with BACnet is, of course, because existing buildings already are communicating with it, or it's the standards that we're used to working with within building integrations. And as we already, I think, an approach that Greg showed earlier today already illustrates the architecture in which customers today are integrating using BACnet. So again, we have our wireless air quality sensors communicating to our hub, and they communicate wirelessly in our encrypted protocol that we call SmartLink. And then from the hub to the cloud, still the data is encrypted. The hub doesn't decrypt any data. It is sent to the Airthings cloud, either over the Ethernet connection or the cellular SIM that's built into the hub. So then back down again into the building, there are various options. And we have a very common one would be, for example, having a BAS controller like a Tridium Jace 8000 that we saw Greg was using in his installation. That would make this data available as data points for actuators around the building. Currently, the only way to do this is through the RESTful API, like the active framework or the one-site solution drivers for Niagara, but also now with MQTT, you can use the native MQTT capabilities built into Niagara 4 and onwards. Alternatively, another way to achieve this is something I like to call the cloud bridge, and that is if you don't have a BAS controller in the building, or maybe you might not have access to, you don't have a sophisticated building automation system, or you don't want to connect your BAS controller to the internet. This is a great solution. So there are a few of these devices on the market. Here's one example from Unipi that has a cellular modem built into it. So it has LTE connection that gives you a direct connection to the Airthings cloud. And then it can output data both digitally, for example, over BACnet, Modbus, or analog. As we saw in Roland's example, he used a cloud bridge like this to get an analog 0 to 10 volt signal. Looking at grouping several air quality sensors, he gave one CO2 level output, and then he normalized it between 0 to 10 volt, the CO2 signal. So this is also a great solution to bridge this gap and get BACnet capabilities within your building. And there are many benefits of thinking like this and heading in this direction, particularly because the traditional traditional the cabling associated with traditional sensors can be quite labor intensive, particularly when we're looking at retrofitting or augmenting your data gathering capabilities in a building. So the beauty of having a wireless and battery operated sensor is that it gives you this flexibility and drastically reduced time to install. And also we hope now by showing you all the various integration options, also a time to integrate. I think one of the key enablers there that some of you have been discussing in the chat and you saw Roland showcasing is something we call aggregate groups, the way that you can, instead of integrating every single device into your building automation system, you can create a group and just get the average, the min or the max of a specific sensor value for that whole group of sensors. So then you're looking at the drastically reducing the number of data points you have to integrate into your unit. And the benefit of having all of these devices in one platform and overview is that you get the anomaly detection and ensuring that you have the integrity of your system. So we know if the calibration has gone off, if the sensor has dropped off your network, you'll get an early warning, and you know that you can always trust that the data gathering from your building is continuously monitored, and you'll be alerted if something has gone awry. And we've also touched upon some of these virtual sensors that benefit from being enriched within a cloud environment. We talked about the virus risk. Another virtual sensor will be the mold risk indicator, looking at temperature and humidity over time to give an indication of certain hotspots in your building that might be prone to mold growth. We also have an occupancy indicator, and then we'll see a lot of value add enrichment of data within this space moving forward. And some of the cases, so again, we're moving back to BACnet. Some of the this is already being deployed in many of our with many of our customers. Quite recently, we won a contract with the government of Quebec to deploy 10,000 air quality monitors in hundreds of their schools. And several of those schools also have existing BACnet installation that they would like to leverage when they get these sponsored devices from the government. And here they're using similar topologies that I already showed you to accomplish this cloud BACnet hybrid setup and being able to leverage what they already have within the building. So it's definitely something that we're going to see more of. And if you do have a project like this or would like support on it, it's something we'll be very gladly help you. And there's also a dedicated guide on the developer page looking specifically at building automations, giving you go-to advice, architectural suggestions, approaches for example, if you need a BACnet, your sensor data over BACnet or other protocols within your building, please check out developer.airthings.com and go to the building automation section. And the building integration team I introduced in the beginning of the webinar will be expanding and evolving this section as well based on feedback from yourselves. And as we launch new support for new devices, new frameworks, and new protocols. I think also specifically to call out, there's a dedicated guide for integrating Airthings into Tridium Niagara 4 here as well. That's focused on I think it's the active framework, but we're also publishing one now for the one-site solution framework as well. So you have many options to go with. I think for that, at this stage, it's clear that we've covered a lot of terrain. I hope that we've been able to integrate with you all of the concepts, ideas, and ways in which you could leverage our APIs. And hopefully you have some ideas sparking in your head as well. I want to thank you very much for joining you. We're overwhelmed by the interest of this topic in our webinar, and clearly it's a boost to try and do more of these sharing events. I know there's a lot of other partners and a lot of other great examples we could have showcased here today, and I really want to get them up on our digital or physical stage in the future. And please do check out our developer documentations, reach out to any of the speakers, reach out to myself on LinkedIn or email, or contact our business support if you have any exciting projects you want to share, any exciting projects you want us to help out with, or give you advice with. We're more than happy to help. And with that, my name is Martin, and thank you very much for joining our webinar here today. Ciao.